Okay. Excellent. All right. So welcome back to another test trial period of our live stream at East Oaks. One of the things that we want to be able to do is bring you professional quality video direct from the studio. So we've taken a lot of time to try to get our production level up high in the videos, thanks to Joe Hawkins and his expertise working with BBC and whatnot. So we were able to accomplish that with the DVDs that we're putting out. And so now the exciting thing is that we can actually bring the same quality videos that we recorded the tutorials with. We can bring it to you guys at home live streaming. So when I came in this morning, I was thinking, well, I got to work on this painting anyway, so why not just go ahead and do another test and share some process with you guys. If you have, it's not going to be I'm not going to explain everything, but we wanted to kind of casually just allow you to ask questions. If you have any questions, this time the form below the video should work. So just go ahead and email any questions to info@eastoakstudio. I have my laptop here. I'll be able to periodically check it. And so as I'm getting started, we can get cranking. Brushes, I have a line of brushes from Rosemary and Company that I pretty much always use. I don't drift outside of it very often, and that was part of the idea about making the brush set, is that it should be something that you use. So I paint on panel a lot, so these soft synthetic round brushes work well for me. You can order them at their website. It's like, I think about 80 pounds for the set, and then it's got bristles, and I think there's like 13 brushes in the set. So, all right, I'm gonna get started on this how I normally do on my second day. This is about, I would say I've done about an hour and a half of work on this, maybe not quite that long. So sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when I'm painting flowers, I will go ahead and do like a quick, really rapid block in, and then I'll just wait till the next day, because I want it to kind of set up and dry, so that then I can go in and start incorporating glazing. Sorry, Joe, does that screw up the focus on the palette? Sorry, buddy. Okay. So the idea yesterday was I just did a quick block in, and with the intention of that I was going to address it today and continue on. Now the setup has adjusted slightly. That's normal. A lot of times I think people panic because the setup shifts, and then you have to kind of think about what you want to keep, what changes, how do you deal with drawing issues, any of that stuff. And the way I've addressed it in the past, and the way I've gone about it, is on the first day I would rather put something up that I know is wrong. So I have this kind of philosophy that everything is always wrong anyway. So on the first day I'm just kind of putting stuff up thinking the bouquet is going to change the second day. So why should I really get too bent out of shape about having it be right? So that's how I approach it. And you see I'm just fiddling with trying to get this color. And the difference between this, what we're doing today, and a workshop, is I'm not going to feel rushed to paint. In a workshop you have about 2 hours, 2.5 hours to do the demo. And here you guys will be able to tune into maybe an hour, hour and a half, depending on how our system works out, what we feel like doing. So that's a difference. In the workshop, you're limited. I have to get a certain distance, otherwise, I won't be able to talk about the thing I have to talk about the next day. So that's you just have to keep up to pace. This is different. So what I usually do is I go around with the same way I painted it the first day. I repaint all the edges on the background because I have to repaint all that stuff anyway. So I go in and just kind of, it allows me to then rework all of the flowers and kind of paint wet into wet. So it's just something that I've discovered over the many years of painting flowers. So see, if I put in the background here, if I kind of block it in, my palette's going to get in the way back there. If I put in a little bit of the background, then that means I can go back and address that at any point, and it's painting wet into wet. So then all the shapes through here, this will change and darken down the shadow side over here to the left. Test it. Same way I'm cutting into the shapes there. Let's see, so that's something that I could talk about. Is I talk about it all the time, but if you've never studied with me, or if you're just tuning in, if you happen to stumble upon my post on Instagram and you're able to tune in, I forget that there's so many people. It's different time zones, so in England it's like 7 o'clock, I think, but I'm just thinking about people who have to do the 9-to-5 grind. They aren't going to be able to tune in. So maybe some artists who are scrolling through their Instagram, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. But so what I was going to say is the neutrals over here to the left, the lower left of my palette. Joe, is this the right side? Can you see it on my iPhone here? Okay, so you'll see on my setup here, I have these in the lower left corner. I have raw umber, so from the left up to the black, it's raw umber, burnt umber, and ivory black. So those are my least saturated neutral primary colors. And I talk about it all the time because I think it's something that's overlooked in painting, is how your palette should correspond with three-dimensional color, conceiving of color in 3 dimensions. So as you travel in and out of the color space, that you should have a good understanding of this. An example, a super quick example, would be if you take the neutral yellow, I don't know if you can see that, Joe. If you can't, just let me know. If you take the neutral yellow and you go up to the next step, which is a raw sienna, and then you go up into a high chroma yellow, there's a point at which this chroma is the most saturated, and then once you try to go brighter with it, it drops off in chroma. So I didn't take yellow and mix across. I didn't take my raw sienna and cad yellow pale and try to mix the cobalt violet into it. What I did was I went from the neutral yellow up into the high chroma yellow. So you're traveling from the center of the sphere out. So that's what I talk about when I mention thinking about color in 3 dimension. If you eventually do write in, put your question maybe in the subject so I can see what you're asking really quickly. Let's see, I'm going to mix up some greens. A really easy formula for green if you have a hard time mixing greens is Viridian and burnt sienna. That should be easy enough to remember. Viridian and burnt sienna, and then from there you can blast out into a little bit more chroma. So when I'm doing this, I'm thinking about, as I kind of mentioned in the portrait demo with Alex last week, this week, today's Friday, that I constantly flip back and forth between 3 dimension and 2 dimension. So the 2 dimension is a picture plane. 2 dimension is the cutting out of the shape. So if I see a dark triangle, which would be like a shape of the leaf, and then I'll put that in. But at the same time, I'll think about how the light is affecting it. So it's existing in a shadow because there's a ranuncula right above it. So that kind of mentality is I see the shape first, and then I determine what the light source is doing, and then I would paint the form accordingly. I use the stems to draw the gesture of the bouquet. So you have this daffodil with the stem coming and light turning. And there's some leaves up here. I travel all the way to the other side of on the far side of the bouquet. I'm seeing, I believe it's part of the rose back there. So it's this kind of deep yellow color. In front of everything, the stem comes in front. I think often about layering the bouquet. So if there's a stem in front of a leaf, in front of a flower, then that's, I'm thinking about layering it in my head. So the physicality of the actual paint layer mimics that. So I'll put the leaf on furthest back and then drag the stem over it. It's like a quintessential perfect spring day in Raleigh, so it's fun to be able to do this. I don't know if you can hear the birds outside singing, but it's nice out. So we're also doing this to continue the launch and celebration of Carlo's video. So that's, you have a couple days left, 4 days left, I think, to save $25 on it. So that's part of the reason we want to engage the audience, test this live stream. We want to let you know that his video is available and it's available for sale. So we're eager to communicate that, because people always inquire and ask if we can, you know, meet them at a reasonable price point, and so we try to offer these sales to be able to make it accessible to you. Someone asked about the medium, Laura Mitchell, and how I'm handling that or thinking about it. Thank you for your question. At the beginning, yesterday, I used Gamsol, and Gamsol typically dries really quick. Within 24 hours, I often, I don't have to add an alkyd to it. And then so I use a lot of oleo gel, in the sense that someone made a comment about me constantly dipping in my Gamsol, but what I'm doing with that is I'm fluctuating the medium, actually. So as a watercolor artist thinks about how much water they're going to put in the pigment, I'm always getting a sense of how much Gamsol is actually in my brush. If I go straight from the Gamsol to the oleo gel, it would be about a 50-50 mix, if, let's just say that's. But if I go to Gamsol, wipe it off on my brush, there's a little bit of Gamsol left in there if I were to think about it. So by mixing the Gamsol with the oleo gel, now it's say a ratio of 90% oleo gel and 10% Gamsol. Well, then you take that 90 to 10% ratio and you mix it with the paint, and there's linseed oil on the paint, so now I have linseed oil and oleo gel and Gamsol in my paint. And so you just constantly have to be thinking about, I tell students that it's like salt. When you're cooking, it's something that is required, but you don't just take the whole thing of salt and put it into your food. You test it, you taste it, and so don't do that with oleo gel, but it's the same idea. It's just you go varying your medium according to what you need to do. So a lot of times I'll be using, like right now, this is, in my mind I'm thinking there's still a little bit of oleo gel left in the brush, but it's pretty much straight paint. So I just switched, technically I just switched my medium. And now technically I'm using a lot more oil straight from the tube. So whatever the manufacturer's consistency is. All right, I'm gonna jump into, I was doing some greens. I like to organize space on my palette. Oh, I want to mention too, just as an overlap, that there is a workshop that Rosemary and Company's just launching. They just got their PDF finished. I don't know if they're going to be launching it today or when, but I just want to mention, I don't know if there's any viewers right now in England, but I'll be over there this summer. I'm pretty excited about it. All right. And yes, that is my excited voice. I am I'm pretty laid back, so I'm eager for people to engage me with questions at this point. Maybe when we have like 1,000 viewers or something and there's 100 questions, I won't be able to answer all of them, but if you were able to, actually, Louis, you should do a test, buddy. Curious to see if that would affect the viewership. Is he back there? Are you available? Yeah. Cool. Awesome. So we just got a question from Arturo. Yeah, he said he loves the live stream. Thank you for that. The brand of panels you use for still lifes. Okay, so this is something that George O'Hanlon actually makes. I made my own, but Natural Pigments and Rublev, I think it's naturalpigments.com. They do a really good ACM panel that's prepared with a leg ground. What I've done is I've taken the ACM panel, which is the aluminum composite material, and I've sanded it down and I've applied a lead alkyd ground to it. And so that's what I'm painting on. I want to, I have to stay true to what I tell students. So oftentimes I'll try to keep my brushes pretty organized. That would be, an example would be like, so this is my high chroma yellow, this is low neutral, a neutral yellow basically, that was for some of the background stuff, and this is a background brush. So this would be a green brush for if I'm going in and drawing any of the leaves. I just try to organize it to a certain extent so that my brushes don't get muddy and disorganized. Because oftentimes you see people scraping their palette. Well, I don't scrape my palette because the goal is to organize the palette in a way that I can just keep it nice and organized and keep my brushes clean, and I don't have to scrape it then. So if you hear anything, I think last time when we did our first test, it was pretty good, so I don't have to worry about it too much. But our studio is in between a restaurant and an event space, so we're in the middle floor, and sometimes we get noise pollution from them moving stuff around. But that's also part of the reason why we're doing a series of tests, and we want to hear your feedback. If things like that bother you, then we want to know if the audio is bad, or if something was bothering you that we maybe can't catch or haven't that we weren't able to point out for ourselves. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab a new brush, and I'm going to create a section for, are you live, buddy? Double live action all over the place. Is this from the East Oaks? You got to do vertical, I think, unless everyone's going to switch their phone. And that's the live stream from the story. Okay, cool. Awesome.
Live, filming live.
Live, and live. So everyone who's tuning into that live stream, you can find this live stream at eastoakstudio.com. And we're just having fun testing out a new system that we got, and we want to hear your feedback. Feel free to visit the website and email us. There's a form below the video. There's a link on the homepage of the website that you can go to get the professional live stream, not the IG live stream. And you can submit your questions. You can just tell us hi. You can tell us your name and where you're from. We would love to hear from you and get a sense of where our audience is tuning in from. That helps us understand if we stream from 1 in the afternoon, then we can catch the audience in Europe. If we do it 8 o'clock in the evening, we can catch the audience on the West Coast. So it helps us just get a sense of how we're gonna try to reach out to when we do these things, when we're gonna do them, etc. Can they comment on there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Waving.
Okay, saying what's up.
Lots of waving going on.
Lots of hearts.
Lots of some hearts.
Some heart. Or is that Periscope? I'm getting them confused. Periscope is the one that all the hearts flutter up. I don't do.
That's Facebook.
Facebook, okay. Well,
You've got 17 people on here.
okay, good. I can do a test too, and since I'm not using my phone a great deal, I can maybe try to live stream from my Instagram account as well. So we'll do that in a little bit.
It's not showing very clearly. It's one of the comments. One of the questions was, why do you prefer to have your palette vertical?
That's for a couple reasons. One, it's really nice for the wide camera angle on my painting to be able to get what I'm doing. And so when I give workshops too, one of the problems was if my palette was low down, then no one could see what I was doing. So it became a habit to try to get it up close to where I was painting so that everyone in the audience could see it. And there's lots of different ways you can do this. There's the parallel palette, which is on the market specifically for that purpose. You can take an Edge Pro gear and turn it sideways, and you can use it like that. So, or you can just take a palette and, as I've done here, you can connect it to a easel.
Why were you on the page since it says hey?
¿Cómo estás, amigo? Mi amigo de Argentina. So that's actually 5 seconds probably sooner than that one over there. It's interesting how the viewership is affected depending on where they're tuning in from.
Christine Joy says thank you for answering the question.
Oh yeah.
Guys, feel free to give other questions if you have any.
Yeah, you can
Happy to.
email info@eastoakstudio too. See, so this mark was from yesterday, and that would be an example where, as I'm figuring out the two-dimensional situating of these. What's up, Joe?
That's good.
That's good?
Give him a close-up.
Yep. Tight back here. as I'm situating these two-dimensional marks, thinking about what's happening with the design of the leaves, then my mark from yesterday, I'll start to triangulate and look at and try to think about where all the cross sections are occurring. So if I want to try to zoom in and focus on like a little snippet of the painting and start to work out the drawing, then I can do that. And the mark from yesterday may not be accurate, but it indicates at least what I was thinking or where I was headed, and then I can adjust it and determine what I want to do with a new layer of paint. So we have. You okay? Look at. Oh, I wish. I think that's good. You got it. So you're going to try to do a better shot of the painting? Okay.
I'm just not using the close to the palette.
Yeah, okay.
The other one's...
The other one's sufficient?
Yeah.
Yep. Good. See, that's why there's a test. So someone asked about Cal Sutherland, I believe, asked about, she said, first time watching a live stream, fantastic. Thank you for tuning in. You were wondering if it was easier to fit the still lifes. Paint still lifes, particularly with vibrant colors with a light background. So what are my thoughts on the Scottish colorist? Well, I don't know a lot about the Scottish colorist, so I'll answer the first part of the question. My flower paintings, I kind of have a system, brand, if you will, that makes it easy for people to identify my work. And what I do is I usually do a neutral background, whether it's in black, brown, gray, or white. And then that allows me to focus on the color harmony in the painting. So I love painting flowers because there's all these amazing subtle, there's vibrant color, but at the same time the vibrant color is subtle. If you get into it, it's not, there's points of chroma that extend way out to the edge, but then a lot of the painting, the trueness of the color is, a lot of it still exists kind of, it's organic, so it still exists in the center of the sphere of color. So the background, I just choose a neutral color just to make it so that my intense colors can kind of be juxtaposed against something that's relatively neutral. All right, going in with the daffodil. Are there more, do you want to address other questions that, are they feeling left out? And
No,
okay. It's good, that's fine. Just
Cat Mo's a signature gray smile face.
all right. Hey Joe, I may ask you a favor while you're back there. Can you grab, there should be a tube of titanium white. See if it stands out to you. It's a smaller tube. If not, I have to go over this obstacle of cameras. You see anything that says titanium white? There you go. Boom. Thanks, buddy. All right. Did you leave it on the palette cam, or which one did you?
We're on this one.
On this one?
No, this one.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to backtrack the camera that your microphone's plugged into.
Yeah. So you can interact with the camera feed over there, and it doesn't totally cut the live stream. That's good. So you can.
Yeah, I think we can drop
That's
it
great.
in again.
Yeah.
Christina Joy says that looks really nice. Yes, it is north light. We also supplement with a little bit of extra light as well. So like on days like today, if you want to see this, we have our north light out here. And then we also have a little bit of additional light when we need it to kind of just add enough light onto the still life.
Also for the production, it's a little bit low.
That's true.
Yeah, with just the.
In order to be able to film these things, we need a little bit more light on it.
So here's a perfect opportunity for me to go in again with my background. So if I have my background brush,
I think if you click the actual video,
Good.
Will, you might be able to remove the comments so you can see the video better. Like, drag your finger down on it.
try to repeat.
Somebody was asking how to remove
Yeah, try to
the
repeat the
comments.
question because this is if they're not on that
that's
feed,
okay.
it's different. So.
And Will is asking how to remove the comments so you can see the screen better. And I was saying, I think if you put your finger on the screen and drag down, it'll move the comments a little bit further down.
That's just on. Tell them to go to the website.
The setup. So I'm going to move over here to. Also, if you want more camera angles that has like the full setup and you can see everything much more up close, we have cameras at the eastoakstudio.com website. It's also filming live, and that'll give you better close-ups and probably a little bit clearer version than my phone can do. And I'll put that in there, eastoakstudio.com.
You can.
I'm not sure what that is.
Click on it once.
It says view.
Wave
Send a
or-
request to be in your
Yeah.
live video.
Okay, I don't know. Do me a favor and sign off of that in a little bit, and then
Okay.
we'll see if it fluctuates the actual viewership of this
Okay.
live stream.
As I'm gonna sign out here soon, I'm gonna put in here our website. If you want to see more information and watch live a little bit longer, we will go. You can go to eastoakstudio.com to keep watching. I put .com and .com.
Good.
Yep.
Thanks, dude.
All right, signing out, everyone. Go to our website.
All right,
Hit 65 viewers.
that's good. So we'll see how that affects the main live feed.
Pretty awesome. I mean,
It's good.
people are like,
All right.
do we want to share that video for the next 24 hours? On
Yeah.
East Oaks?
You don't have to, because the point was to. I would say cancel it. All right. So let's see, back to, I'm advancing a little bit all over the place because I'm still figuring out the block-in. So the block-in is, again, the idea of two-dimensional shapes as opposed to the three-dimensional atmosphere and the way that light affects the form. So the block-in is I'm just going around trying to figure out where all these stems are, and I'm triangulating with the leaves as I'm moving around, thinking about placement of stuff. So there's And there's another white ranuncula behind the daffodil. So I need some more white paint. Remember to fill out the form and send in your question. I want to be able to try to utilize the live stream nature of this so you can ask any questions you want, and I'll try to address anything that comes in. So this was the white ranuncula behind the daffodil. Clean up my background space so that it's a little come in here and cut into the background. Hey Joe, I think I'm gonna try to do a live stream from my Instagram account.
Okay. You want me to get one up for you?
Yeah, you can. So tell me if that affects or drops out. Is that? All right, so.
Where do you want to go?
It's good. Flake white versus titanium white. There's a question, flake white versus titanium white, and I would say I'm using titanium white because I like how bright it is. I'm sure flake white is pretty bright as well. You can use either one. A lot of things, I answer a lot of questions with whatever you prefer. So if you like it, use it. I just recommend or tell you what I'm using. So then if you want to incorporate that into your setup or whatever your selection of colors is, then you can do it. But if not, then there's no. I always tell people that every single artist throughout history has used a different palette. So just go ahead and use whatever you want. It's your personal statement. Did you?
Yep, we're live.
Okay, cool.
We got 35 people.
So what we're doing, we just did a live stream from East Oak Studio Instagram account. Now Lewis is doing a live stream from my Instagram account because we want to let people know that we're doing live stream testing at eastoakstudio.com. So if you want the professional version and you want to see actually what I'm doing, you can go ahead and jump over to East Oak Studio and you can get the free live stream there.
And that's eastoakstudio.com. Put it in
You're typing it?
in the comments. And that way you can get more higher resolution and closer up shots than I can do with my phone.
So when I have the background brush, then I'm able to go in and adjust what I just put down. So you can redraw things. to everyone on the East Oaks, or sorry, my Instagram live feed. If you have questions, go to the website and email us, because that's better for me. I can read the question later or right now. And
computer open right there, waiting
yeah.
for the emails to come in.
My 2002 Mac top. Mac top, book top, whatever top. From the South now.
Man, you got yourself a good old Mac top.
My beard? Where'd it go?
For lack thereof.
I lost it.
It's all clean shaven today, everybody.
Mr. Clean Face. All right. Back to painting. Joe, if I move this slightly to the right, is that cool?
That's fine.
Okay. Remind me if it's a problem and I can move it back. All right. I've been doing a lot of kind of blocking in over here, so I'm going to travel back over to the right. So what I would do is I would just look at the distance between these two. Earlier, Lewis had asked me about the flower had fallen a little bit, the rose has fallen down. And I go after nature. So you see that petal that's on the table, that's due to the producer bumping it. It fell into the perfect position. So that came off earlier. So when stuff like that happens, I just follow nature. I allow nature to be the guide, and if I want to change the design, I will switch it. But if I think that there's something that's working in my painting, I'll just allow the painting to remain. Essentially, it's wrong, but in my mind, if I like it better, then it's worth it to keep it. So.
Trish Mitchell just said, "Beautiful, Michael."
Oh, hey, Trish. She's in South Africa. It's evening there. That's great. See, you can go all the way across the world into South Africa.
Trish, we have, if you just joined us, we have on our website better live feed angles going on with our cameras. They're just a little bit better resolution. And so if you want to see more.
So this was my example earlier of going from a desaturated neutral yellow into a high chroma yellow, and then you end up dropping off. If you want to go up into the light, you end up losing chroma. So this is just an example of, this is raw umber up into raw sienna, cad yellow pale, and then that's unless I were to glaze the cad yellow pale over white, I couldn't get more chromatic than that. If I thin it out over white, it may get a little bit more chromatic, because oftentimes transparent color is just more chromatic. But then you add white to try to go higher, and you have to understand that transition as it goes up into the whites, that you just drop off chroma as you keep going up. In the Munsell thing, it shoots over to the center of the diagram.
Michelle Dunaway just said, "Hi, Michael, you're killing it."
Hey, Michelle.
Does the painting.
That's great. See you next week.
Yep.
Oh, someone commented, thank you, Cisa Levente. She said it had the feeling of a Sargent painting, so that's a high compliment. Is there only one light in the studio? No, we have two. We have a north light, and then we have an artificial light. So that's from Brad Fisher. Thanks, Brad. Yeah. So the north light is just, it's not strong enough. So we had to add.
Michelle Dunaway is asking, are you going to Portrait Society? See you next week. And yes, Paul, Josh, Lorock, me, Louis Carr, and Michael will all be there.
Yep. All right. So if you've ever, if you've never tried to paint with a fan brush, I encourage it, just because, especially when I paint on a panel, it covers a lot of, you can move really fast, so it covers a lot of ground really quickly, and it's a big brush, so, but it acts, it's interesting because you can do different things with it, that you can turn it sideways and get a point, or you can just spread it out over the surface. And you can thin out paint, etc., like this, and you can drag it on its side, and so it's extremely valuable as you're going around your painting in different ways.
Levente says, can I buy your DVD here in Hungary?
Yep, I think
I
so.
believe you can. All you need to do is go to the East Oak Studio website and put in an order for the DVD, and we have a second party that helps us deliver to international locations. Bison Dream says, was there ever a point in your painting career when you started with a raw umber drawing value study?
There was a point in New York that was compelling to me. I never really incorporated it into my working method, though. It was something that was being done as kind of an underpainting wipeout, and I had just a brief while where I was doing that, but I prefer to try to go in with the direct paint and hit the note as close as I can. I feel like it lends a different result. So if you have a raw underpainting, those browns are going to show through, and a lot of the technique that I'm incorporating is I'm very kind of loose with a foundation of color. So I just go ahead and put down whatever, and then I manipulate that with glazing. And so then if the foundation is colorful, then I can glaze over it. And so it's almost the opposite. I could glaze over brown over top of the color. So that's kind of my working method.
Maybe Herbie says, is there a specific way you have to prepare your background versus foreground? Because this is my issue when it comes for me to paint still life well.
Mm-hmm. I don't fully understand that question, but I would just say try to prepare the base layer or your background or whatever you're painting as successfully as you can, so that it lends to a successful painting in the later stages.
Suman R says, who's her favorite artist in terms of still lifes?
Oh gosh, I think it would be, you know, if I didn't say I was not influenced by Fantin Latour, that would be a lie. I've always looked at Fantin Latour's work, especially with flower painting. But I would say Chardin is even somebody I would pick out snippets of. If you think about Sargent, and I don't think Sargent wasn't a known still life painter, but you translate and you just pull whatever you like about that artist's work into your own work, and you apply it however you think is inspiring to you. So with somebody like Sargent, that would be, you know, I'd look at the way he was painting and thinking about painting and try to apply that to my own work. Then say maybe somebody like Bastien Lepage, or, you know, he's not necessarily a still life painter, but he's an artist who I deeply admire, and so then I would take his technique and I would try to apply it to flower painting. And so whoever I admire or look up to, you know, or even my teacher, I would think about things that I've learned in school at Grand Central Atelier, and think about how Jacob would paint flowers, and or the figure or whatever. I think it's more about a series of, rather than who my favorite artists are, or how am I influenced by them. It's more about how does nature work, and then what were the artists doing to understand that. So I talk a lot about the way my palette's organized, because I think that was a common thing in the 19th century and the way artists thought about their palettes. And so therefore that directly then affects everything else I do and how I paint. So something like that, this is an instrument. It's such a valuable part of the way we think about what we're doing. It's everything. If it's not organized here, it's not going to be organized here. Or if it's not clean here, it's not going to be clean on your painting. And so there's a direct correlation of your understanding of your materials and how they affect your style. So like that time I was doing a certain amount of searching for the right note. It was too cold. So I have no problem putting down a stroke 3 or 4 times until I'm in my color range, in the area that I want to be in, so that it's the right color harmony, etc. And then once you lock into it and you have it right here on your palette, then this is this flower here. It ends up being, I think earlier I may have had it there, but you start to organize and you realize that once you have it here, then it's all about painting the form and understanding where you're at on the scale here.
For anyone and everyone who's joining, for clearer and more steady camera angles, I think my hand's getting a little.
Yeah, you can stop.
Please go to eastoakstudio.com. We have really good high-res cameras filming there with multiple angles, so that you can get a real close-up of the color palette and of the painting, as well as the still life.
Signing off on that one?
Yeah, I have one more quick question that just came in. What is the best surface for oil painting?
Yeah, I would say a lead ground.
So a lead ground is a really good painting, but if you're talking about substrates like this, the surface at which
Joe,
you actually put the
I was going to ask you to be careful as you're poking by it. Yeah, that's all right.
A lot of people would say to do aluminum composite, and putting a ground on that is a really, really gives a pretty good longevity to your paintings. Could you speak a little bit about the composition and what you thought about when you started?
Just have them, please, on this feed on IG, tune in to eastoakstudio.com, and we'll continue the conversation through the website. So please email any questions that you have, and I'll control it from
I'll
from
put
my.
the email in here. It's info@eastoakstudio.com. take any more questions. So I'm going to be signing off really soon. And go, if you want to see the live feeds that are a little more high res, go to eastoakstudio.com. All right, everyone,
Good.
thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks, buddy.
You got like a bajillion
Oh,
likes that went up
that's-
as soon as you hit the end.
All right.
Thank you, I guess.
Cool. Good. Thanks, buddy.
Woo.
Joe, do you want me?
Stop doing that.
It's still it's still live, so we just transitioned over to
Okay.
yeah.
It wasn't still live. 'Cause
No, it is right now.
Oh, there. Yes. Too many levels.
All right. So going back to this stream of questions here. Okay. So this is a question from North Dakota, actually, Fargo. So it says from Warren. He says, "Will you address the vase at a later date due to the eventual wilting of the flowers?" Yes. So I always keep the vase for the third day. I always paint what is organic and going to die. I paint that while it's fresh. So that's top priority is the bouquet that's going to fade on me. So everybody knows what we're doing. We're doing a series of live stream tests. We just would encourage you to send any thoughts or comments or questions to our email. And part of the reason why we have to keep saying is because there's people constantly coming in and out, and being that this is a trial period and a test, we want to hear from you because eventually we would love to be able to do full-blown workshops. And during the workshops, it would be a little bit different. It would be I would be basically teaching the whole time. There wouldn't be a lot of room for questions and kind of distractions. But then there would be a period where I would then stop painting and address the questions so that everyone feels like they're getting their money worth and they can directly interact with me. And so it could be maybe 2 hours of painting and a half hour of questions, but that way I can keep on track with explaining what I want to do and what I want to explain in the live stream. So there's a guy, Afnan from, I believe, I thought he was in New York, but what is your thinking process of when you're painting? Do you think about values or combination of value, color, edges, etc.? Is this thinking process done consciously or subconsciously? Yeah, most definitely. In order to paint well, you have to, I think there's a certain amount of intuitive, kind of artistic expression that happens, and that's my reaction to nature, whether or not I truly am convinced that that's beautiful or not. That affects the realness of my painting. So, but if I'm thinking about values, that's everything is set up in my mind. It goes through a period of, as I'm mixing, there's a scale here, you see the scale. So I'm thinking about where in the position of how the light is hitting the form, I'm thinking about how that's affecting the surface, and that calibrates my value. So once I get the value calibrated, then as I go up to the canvas, there's a certain amount of pressure and sensitivity that I'm implying that is first two-dimensional, then it's three-dimensional. So I'm lifting up the brushstroke, and so I was thinking about the two-dimensional shape of the inside of the rose, but then at the same time, with the pressure, as you lift it up, you kind of create a gradation in the value here that affects the form, if that makes sense. So now I'm looking again, and I say, okay, I want to calculate my dark value, add a little bit of magenta, yellow, raw umber, and so then that dark value rests underneath, and so that has to do with understanding that the light is diminishing and it's no longer receiving light on that part of the flower, and so I'm moving to the left back into the shadows in order for it to be darker. And so in my mind I'm going through that process over and over and over. Where's it at according to a light source? What position do I have to put it down? And how does the pressure of my brush affect everything else that's going on? So. All right, as it goes back, let's see. Goes this way, back there. So that's a drawing thing. Calibrate where it's at on where the light is hitting it, how the light affects it. And I can move to my right and say, okay, the light is coming just underneath the daffodil, and it's dropping off and transitioning and hitting the back part of this. Grab my background. Joe, can you tell me, did this come back into play? So my battery's low, but does this, can you reconnect this camera here? Okay, cool. I want to focus on this for a second. I want to show, sometimes the phone is different than the DSLR cameras, so you can see how much variety is in my mixtures here. So this is going back. This is the kind of white, pink, rose area, and moving up. Let's see. I'm trying to adjust the. You see my variety of greens that oftentimes have a lot of the brown sticking through in the green back there. And then as I go up, yeah, high chroma section, and then it goes into the low. So this would be a subtle part of the rose, or whatever it was that I was painting. That must have been the rose in shadow or something. But then as it jets up into a higher part, that would have been maybe the, trying to think, you can drop that off, sorry buddy. That would have been, I think it's another kind of daffodil off to the left. It's kind of wilted, so I can't really tell. All right. I'm going to go back to some questions quick while I'm. Can you speak a bit about the composition you choose and the thought of when you started? So, what I did this time was, which this is one of the first times I've done this, but I went ahead and just got a bouquet that was purchased from the florist in town. That's a respectable, trendy kind of florist. So I went ahead and just said, well, I'm going to let them set up the bouquet because they're flower designers and they have a sense of what is popular and what is good balance and all that stuff. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to paint it as beautifully as I see it. So to take out a little bit of the frustration of I don't study any sort of floral design or anything like that. To me it's more exercise of the beauty of all the colors and brushstrokes and how they interact with one another. So for me, I would just be more comfortable with someone who knows what they're doing with a bouquet, setting it up. So I went ahead and tried that, and I'm pretty excited about it because there's just too many things to learn and think about, and I don't have time to study the trends in everything that's happening in the floral world. So that's how I came up with this composition. And then obviously the white was my decision. I thought it would be cool to have the white background because it affects how you view these flowers up on top, the daffodils, the ranuncula, and the rose in back. If you have a dark background, those are going to be a way more significant part of the composition, but with this light, it's actually the focal point stays down here, even though I'm not painting on that part right now. In the end, the focal point is this kind of combination of what the flowers are doing on this side. This is all secondary. So then to mention Carlo's video, right now Carlo's video is on sale, you should buy it. But I was inspired by what he did in his video, and so I took a piece of dye bond and I just flipped it on its side so the white sheen or whatever, it would reflect the vase. And so I think Carlo would be I think he would be happy to hear that we influence each other in our ideas, and so that was an area where he was definitely influencing me on this setup. I thought it was pretty cool what he did in the video because you could see the glass reflected down into the surface of the table. So that's how I came up with the composition. Thanks, Jessica. That was a good question. Zach Larson says, how much of a role does your background color play into your subject of the painting? Yeah, so I just kind of gone over that, so I won't retouch it, or I won't talk about it again. Hey Joe, how much do you predict is left on anything? Would you say we've been going about a little over an hour?
We've been going about an hour and a quarter.
Okay, yeah.
On the camera link, we've got just under half the batteries left.
Okay, great.
Cameras are all pretty good. So. Probably got another 30 minutes at least.
Yeah, I'm totally fine. I have no problem painting and talking on camera. That's not. I'll come back over here and start to address some of this stuff. Each step of the painting, I kind of refer to it as a conversation with somebody, and the more time you spend with that person, the more you kind of intimately get to know them and the way they laugh and the way they maybe express themselves, or so that you start to like that about the person, and you start to, that affects the way you feel about them. And so when I'm painting, I think of it as a conversation between me and nature, and I'm kind of going along, and each little snippet of information is added to the character of what I know about nature. So it's as I'm looking at these leaves back here and kind of thinking about how to decipher each little spot, and how that plays into the design. You have the tulip and then the greenery down below, and just how much that, you know, if that's going to be really dark, if it's going to be light because it's in shadow. A really dark would influence the decision of the composition going this way. So that's, you know, those are just all things that I'm thinking about as I'm painting. There's a lot of warmth in greens. People, I'm sorry that I constantly refer to students. It's just, I think I can connect in a certain way with maybe some of the errors that people make. And maybe you're making those same errors. So, and not even errors, just kind of maybe stumbling blocks or something that you're doing that you may be disappointed with. And but one of those things is your greens are too cold. In nature, there's, if I were to just hold up a leaf or a stem and show you what I'm talking about, the green, you can look at it on your own. I don't know what it is in the physics of the leaf or why it does it, but there's a lot of warmth. Sometimes there's red snippets of that are in the green, and so when people are painting, maybe use Viridian, and maybe you would use Viridian and like ultramarine blue, and those are two really high chroma cool colors that would just like make it really harsh, and so that would affect where it sits on the scale. It's not a neutral, and it would be too cold. So someone just wrote in saying they love the live stream. Thank you so much, Gloria. Don't forget to email us and tell us where you're at as well. I like to. It's fun for us to be able to, you know that Trish in South Africa is viewing, and that's just awesome. That makes it so much more fun for us. So I'll go in, and I'm just gonna. I have a clean brush. Clean meaning I have a clean background color. So I'll go in here, and I'm gonna redraw my leaves. So I'll try to position it in a way that now is closer to nature. And so that was, I advanced, but now it's dirty. So I can't keep going over the background. I have to clean out my brush, think about what I want to do. If I'm going to readdress it, then I would have to come in here and make sure it's the right value. Come in here and readdress. There we go. So you can continue to draw the greens, the leaves and stems. And so you're painting wet into wet back there. So that allows you to work the edges different than if it was a dry paint scraped over. Sorry, the wet paint scraped over the dry ground. So it's interesting here, there's like a point at which the leaf overlaps. It gets darker right where it overlaps. It's maybe a little bit too much. And as transmitted light passes through that, or reflected light, that would be a little bit of, it's just bounce light. And so actually what that is on closer inspection, it's just the tilt of it's just the bend of it's not an overlap. So disregard what I just said, that effect is not occurring in nature. I feel like I'm going so slow, but we talked about earlier that part of good painting is you just have to do it slow. I like to try to paint quick because it's a little bit more entertaining, but doesn't always make for a good painting. So you have to be able to know when you can get away with that and when you need to kind of maybe slow down a bit and just paint it well. I want to take another question from Gail. Gail said, "Thank you for making this live stream available." You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be able to do it. Oh, and she just mentioned it's a joy to watch. So thank you, Gail, for that feedback. It's always nice to know that it's inspiring people out there. Oh, nice. So you're gonna have to forgive me. Ellen Ross is tuning in from Iceland. So if I slaughtered your name, I'm sorry. But that's awesome that you're tuning in from Iceland. It's just I love that stuff. Thank you for emailing and telling us. I'm going to go to the back. I go back and forth all the time, and I'm a little bit trying to figure out, trying to read emotionally, trying to read my reaction to this and what I need to do to it. I was over here working on these, and I was thinking in my head I was going to kind of move up to the tulip. Why don't we do that for a bit? I'll just see if I can focus on one thing. So there's lots of, that's definitely transmitted light, and there's lots of light I can see on the inside of the tulip. These are different varieties of tulips, I believe. They look different, but so on the inside here, it gets quite chromatic and green, which is kind of interesting. But because the light is passing through the petal, and I'm seeing the underside of the backside of that flower. So I'm taking like Viridian, Cad Yellow Pale, Magenta. Those are all high chroma colors. Viridian, Cad Yellow, or sorry, magenta, kid yellow pale as it warms up. Becomes more orange. And it goes darker. See, I'm doing kind of like, I noticed on the replay of these things how much I move my brush around. It's kind of like watching yourself play sports or something, and you can realize that you're doing something that you couldn't have realized if you didn't get the playback. So part of the movement that's happening in my brush is because I'm so scatterbrained. I'm thinking lighter, 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 darker, 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 lighter, lighter, lighter. So my brush is moving along with my mind as I'm doing that. Another aspect of that would be that I would maybe be trying to move the paint in a way. I'm thinking in my head, how can I make this look like a flower? And so I'm dragging the brush around in a way that is going to mimic nature, and I'm just kind of glazing the paint on there, and I'm not quite ready to make a commitment to the brush stroke that I want to do. So there'll be lots of movement. And then if I do decide to make, if there's clear in my mind something that I want to push towards, like right now I'm pushing up into the high chroma pinks, I'm adding more magenta and more cad yellow, and I'm moving to my right. And so I'm going to put that down in like, you know, 1 or 2 strokes, and I just leave it. So at times my mind is moving and I'm thinking about stuff, and so my brush is moving, and at other times I'll just come in kind of with a graceful stroke, and that's it. I'll leave it. This question is camera related. I struggle taking photos of my paintings. Any suggestions that would be helpful with that? Maybe someday we can have Joe do a tutorial on photography. I'm not an expert on photos. Oftentimes what I do is I'll set the painting up with light. Either it's lit naturally and I'll just take a picture, or I'll do 2 artificial light sources from 45-degree angles and try to get, I'll try to get no glare on my painting. I just realized that I'm not putting in the pink ranunculus, and it's because I haven't decided if I want to yet. I'm worried that that's going to make this go way over to the side of, in our live stream I was talking with Alex about kind of this quality about artwork that is maybe a little bit too sweet or too pretty, and I want it to be beautiful. I want it to be that deep, truthful beauty that I'm looking at in the bouquet. So if I put that pink ranunculus there, I'm just worried that it's going to shift the composition in a direction that I'm not happy with. So I've been really holding off on putting it there. And chances are, by the end of this live stream today, I'm not going to put it in because I'm still thinking about it. And that is not going to die, so I don't have to feel rushed to put it in. I can take my time with it. I'm going to go with straight white here just because I want to try to expand all the way up into my brightest light, even though I see a lot of yellow and color in there. That's something where I can come in and glaze over later. So oftentimes I'll paint something darker or lighter than it is for an effect that I'm wanting to do later on. So. We have a couple more questions. There's one thank you from Yana, and she just ordered the rosemary brushes and is excited to try them. So that's awesome. That's what I like to hear. The more overlap of helping everyone, and that's what this is all about. So. There's a workshop opportunity for Rosemary and Company as well, if you check out their website. One person asked what kind of brushes I'm using. Okay, Christine, so that goes to the other question of the person just saying that they bought them. It's a set of brushes from Rosemary and Company, and it's on their website, and you can order the whole set right off of their website, and they have these cool sable fan brushes that I use all the time. So earlier I was using them for my background, and now I'm using it just ever so slightly to go in and adjust some unwanted brush work that if, as the author of the painting, you want to be in control of the brush work, and you want to know at times where texture is important, and at other times you don't want the brushwork to be so in your face, kind of. So, because I go around in the workshops and I say, you've done the same thing all over the entire painting. And so in other words, you have the same you have the same feeling all over the whole painting, the same brushwork. And so the suggestion would be to vary the brush, or to vary the way that you're applying the paint, so that you can have the vase painted one way and the tulip another way, or the ranunculus one way and the leaves another way. And then if you have a fan brush where you're knocking down edges, and you have a palette knife, there's all these different ways of painting that you can explore. So I think we're getting close to finishing this live stream up. I'm really thankful for everyone who tuned in, and in the future we'll be, as I mentioned, we'll be offering classes. The classes will be a little bit more structured, workshops or one-time live streaming events, and we just we'll do a series of free live streams as well, that we can constantly be kind of hearing from you and taking questions and allowing you to tune in and see what we're doing. But at the same time, we can also do it a little bit more structured, where we're not doing any promotion stuff, where it's more just about like the nitty-gritty kind of technical aspects of painting, and you'll get all your questions answered. And so stay tuned for that. And don't forget to check out Carlo's video. That's on sale just the rest of this week, and so be sure to check that out. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you all the people who submitted questions this time. That was very helpful. So we're signing off, and until next time, take care.